My name is Lance. I am 57 years old. 2 weeks ago, I buried my wife Margaret after watching cancer take her from me over 2 long years. Last night, I stood in the rain outside my own house, the house I built with these two hands over 30 years ago. My daughter Kristen looked me in the eyes and said, "You can sleep in the doghouse tonight, or leave. I do not care anymore." Then she locked the door and turned off her phone. Before I tell you what happened next, let me know where you are watching from today. Drop your location in the comments below. If stories about family betrayal and finding your strength again speak to you, hit that like button and subscribe to this channel. Now let me take you back to the beginning so you can understand how a father ends up standing in the rain, locked out by his own daughter. I met Margaret in the summer of 1991 at a little diner called Rosie's off Highway 42 in a small town outside Columbus, Ohio. I was 24 years old back then, working as an electrician for a construction company that paid decent wages but demanded long hours. Every morning before my shift, I stopped at Rosie's for coffee and whatever breakfast special they had going. That is where I first saw her. Margaret was a waitress there, and I noticed her the moment I walked through that door. She had this warm brown hair she always kept tied back in a neat ponytail, and a smile that made you feel like the most important person in the room. She remembered my order after my second visit: black coffee, no sugar, scrambled eggs, and toast. She would bring it to my table before I even had to ask, and she would say, "Here you go, early bird." Same as always. Something about the way she said it made my heart skip every single time. It took me 3 months to work up the courage to ask her out. 3 months of rehearsing what I was going to say in the bathroom mirror, of writing down different versions of the invitation and throwing them all away. Finally, one Friday evening after my shift, I walked into Rosie's wearing my cleanest shirt, and I asked her if she would like to see a movie with me sometime. She looked at me for a long moment, and I thought for sure she was going to say no. But then that smile appeared, and she said, "I thought you would never ask." Our first date was at the old Maple Street Cinema, watching some romantic comedy I cannot even remember the name of anymore. What I do remember is the way Margaret laughed during the funny parts, this genuine, unguarded sound that made me feel like everything in the world was exactly right. Afterward, we walked to the ice cream parlor next door. I was so nervous that I dropped my cone right onto my shirt, and Margaret laughed so hard she nearly dropped hers too. Instead of being embarrassed, I found myself laughing along with her. That was the moment I knew I wanted to spend my life with this woman. We got married a year later in a small ceremony at St. Michael's Church, with about 30 guests, mostly family, and a few close friends. We did not have much money for a honeymoon, so we spent the weekend at a cabin by the lake 2 hours north of town. It was perfect. We talked about our dreams, about the family we wanted to build, about the life we would create together. Those early years were not easy. Margaret and I both worked constantly. I took every overtime shift I could get and picked up side jobs on weekends doing electrical work for neighbors and local businesses. Margaret worked 2 jobs herself. She kept her position at Rosie's during the day, and in the evenings she worked as a cashier at the convenience store on Oak Street. We lived in a tiny 1-bedroom apartment with a leaky faucet and a radiator that made strange noises in the winter. But we were happy. We were building something together. For 5 years, we saved every penny we could. We did not go to restaurants, did not take vacations, did not buy anything we did not absolutely need. I remember Margaret cutting coupons at the kitchen table, stretching every dollar until it screamed. I remember eating the same cheap meals over and over, beans and rice pasta with tomato sauce, whatever was on sale at the grocery store. We were determined. Finally, we had enough for a down payment on a small piece of land in the suburbs about 40 minutes outside the city. The property was nothing special, just an acre of grass and weeds with a few old oak trees. But to us, it was everything. This was where we would build our home. I did most of the construction myself. I was an electrician, not a carpenter, but I learned. I spent my evenings and weekends reading books about construction, watching how the builders worked at my day job, asking questions whenever I could. Margaret was right there beside me through all of it. She helped me mix concrete, she handed me nails while I framed the walls, she painted every room with colors she picked out from the hardware store. We even planted flowers together along the front walkway, little marigolds and petunias that bloomed orange and purple in the summer. The house took us 3 years to finish working on it whenever we had spare time. When it was finally done, it was not fancy. Just a 2-story home with 3 bedrooms, a kitchen, a living room, and a nice backyard with that big oak tree standing right in the middle. But to me and Margaret, it was a palace. It was proof that 2 people who loved each other could build something real with nothing but hard work and determination. Our daughter Kristen was born 2 years after we moved in. I was 30 years old. Margaret was 28. I will never forget the moment the nurse placed that tiny baby girl into my arms. My hands were rough and calloused from years of work, and they were shaking as I held her. She was so small, so fragile, so perfect. I looked down at her little face, and I made a silent promise. I swore I would give this child everything I never had. I swore I would work as hard as I needed to so she would never want for anything. And I kept that promise. For the next 25 years, I kept it every single day. I woke up early every morning to make breakfast for my family. Pancakes on weekends, oatmeal on weekdays, whatever Kristen wanted. I drove her to school every day until she got her driver's license, and even then, I still offered. I attended every school play, every soccer game, every piano recital. I sat in the front row with Margaret beaming with pride while our little girl performed. Margaret was the heart of our home. She quit her second job after Kristen was born, so she could be there when our daughter came home from school. She read stories to Kristen every night before bed, the same fairy tales over and over until Kristen knew them by heart. She made our house feel warm and safe and full of love. We had this tradition, the 3 of us. Every night, no matter what, we would eat dinner together at the kitchen table. No television, no distractions. Just the 3 of us talking about our days, sharing stories, laughing at each other's jokes. Margaret insisted on it, and I never argued. Those dinners were sacred. Kristen grew up surrounded by love. She did well in school, made friends easily, never got into any real trouble. She went off to college, got a degree in marketing, landed a good job at a firm in the city. At 25, she married a man named Derek, a smooth-talking guy who worked in sales. I had my reservations about him from the start. Something in his eyes seemed calculating, like he was always sizing people up. But Kristen loved him, and I loved her, so I kept my concerns to myself. Looking back at those years, now sitting alone in this empty house, I find myself wondering where things started to go wrong. When did my little girl, the one who used to run into my arms when I came home from work, when did she become the woman who locked me out of my own house? When did the child I sacrificed everything for decide that I belonged in the doghouse? I wish I had the answers. But some questions do not have easy explanations. Sometimes people change in ways you never expect. Sometimes the ones you love the most are the ones who hurt you the deepest. The first sign that something was wrong came in the autumn of 2023, almost 2 years before the night I stood in the rain outside my own door. Margaret had been coughing for weeks, a dry, persistent sound that would not go away no matter what medicine she took. She told me it was nothing, just a seasonal cold that was taking its time to clear up. But I knew my wife. After 30 years together, I could read her body better than my own. I saw how she got tired climbing the stairs. I noticed how she lost her appetite picking at her food instead of finishing her meals. I watched her lose weight week after week. I finally insisted she see a doctor. She resisted at first, telling me I was being overprotective, that I was making a big deal out of nothing. But I would not let it go. I made the appointment myself and drove her there on a Tuesday morning in late October. The diagnosis came back 3 days later. Stage 3 lung cancer. The doctor said those words in a calm, clinical voice, as if he was reading off a grocery list instead of delivering a death sentence. I sat there in that sterile white office holding Margaret's hand, and I felt the entire world collapse around me. Margaret squeezed my fingers tight. She looked at me with those beautiful brown eyes, and she said, "We will fight this together, Lance. We have been through hard times before." I wanted to believe her. I needed to believe her. I called Kristen that same afternoon. She answered on the third ring, her voice cheerful and distracted. I could hear Derek in the background saying something about dinner reservations. When I told her about her mother's diagnosis, there was a long silence on the other end of the line. Then I heard her crying soft sobs that broke my heart all over again. "I will come home more often, Dad," she said through her tears. "I promise. I will be there for Mom." Those words meant everything to me in that moment. I believed my daughter. I had no reason not to. The treatment began immediately. Chemotherapy, radiation, doctor's appointments that seemed to multiply every week. Margaret faced it all with a courage that humbled me. Even when the drugs made her sick, even when her hair started falling out in clumps on her pillow, she never complained. She would just smile at me and say, "At least I will save money on shampoo." I took early retirement from my job so I could care for her full time. At 55, I had planned to work at least another 10 years, but those plans no longer mattered. Nothing mattered except being there for my wife. I learned how to administer her medications, how to help her bathe when she was too weak to do it herself, how to cook the soft foods she could still swallow when the treatments ravaged her throat. I held her hand during the long nights when she could not sleep from the pain. I told her stories about our past, about the first time we met at Rosie's Diner, about building our house together, about raising Kristen. Some nights when the pain got really bad, Margaret would ask me to sing to her. I have never been much of a singer, but she loved this old Frank Sinatra song called "The Way You Look Tonight." I would sit on the edge of her bed holding her frail hand, and I would sing those words in my rough, off-key voice. And somehow it helped. Somehow it gave her a few minutes of peace. The medical bills piled up quickly. Insurance covered some of it, but not nearly enough. I sold my old pickup truck, the one I had driven for 15 years, to help pay for her treatments. I cut back on everything I could think of. No more morning coffee from the diner. No more new clothes for myself. Every dollar I had went toward keeping Margaret alive, toward buying her one more month, one more week, one more day. In those early months, Kristen kept her promise. She drove the 40 minutes from the city almost every weekend. She brought flowers for her mother, sat by her bedside, held her hand, told her about what was happening at work. Margaret's face would light up every time Kristen walked through the door. Those visits gave her something to look forward to, a reason to keep fighting. But as the months wore on, Kristen's visits became less frequent. She called one weekend to say she could not make it because of a work deadline. The next week, Derek needed her help with something important. The week after that, she was too tired from a busy schedule. One excuse followed another until the weekly visits became monthly and then even less. I tried not to be too hard on her. I told myself that Kristen was an adult with her own life, her own responsibilities. She had a career, a husband, a household to manage. I could not expect her to drop everything and spend every weekend at her dying mother's bedside. That would not be fair. But Margaret noticed. She never said anything, but I could see the disappointment in her eyes every time she asked when Kristen was coming, and I had to tell her I did not know. Near the end, Margaret asked about her daughter almost every day. "When is Kristen coming, Lance? I miss her so much." I would always tell her soon. "She will be here soon, sweetheart. She is just busy with work." I called Kristen more times than I can count. Sometimes she answered, sometimes she did not. When she did pick up, the conversations were always brief. She sounded distracted, impatient, even like I was interrupting something more important. She would promise to visit soon, then hang up quickly. In the final 3 months of Margaret's life, Kristen came to see her mother exactly 3 times. 3 visits in 90 days. And each visit was short, just a few hours before she had to get back to the city for some reason or another. I was too consumed with caring for Margaret to process what was happening with our daughter. I did not have the energy to analyze it or confront it. All my focus was on the woman I loved, on making her comfortable, on giving her whatever peace I could in her final days. But looking back now, I can see the signs I missed. The way Kristen asked about finances whenever she did visit. The questions about the house, about whether Margaret had updated her will recently. The calculating look in Derek's eyes when he came along on those rare visits, the way he examined our home like he was appraising real estate. I was too blinded by grief and exhaustion to see what was right in front of me. My daughter was not pulling away because of her busy life. She was pulling away because she was waiting. Waiting for her mother to die. Waiting to collect what she thought she was owed. Margaret passed away on a Thursday morning in early September. The leaves on the big oak tree in our backyard were just starting to turn from green to gold the way she always loved. She always said autumn was her favorite season, the colors, the cool air, the smell of fallen leaves. I was lying beside her in our bed when it happened. I had moved our mattress downstairs months earlier, setting up a hospital bed in the living room, where it was easier to care for her. But that last night she asked me to help her into our real bed, the one we had shared for 30 years. She wanted to be somewhere familiar. We lay there together in the darkness, my arm around her thin shoulders, her head resting against my chest. She was so light by then, barely 90 pounds. I could feel her heartbeat faint but steady against my side. "Lance," she whispered. Her voice was so weak I had to lean in close to hear her. "I am right here, sweetheart. Take care of our girl," she said. "Promise me." I squeezed her hand gently, afraid of hurting her fragile bones. "I promise, Margaret. I will always take care of her." She smiled that same beautiful smile I had fallen in love with at Rosie's Diner 33 years ago. Then she closed her eyes and let out a soft sigh, like she was finally letting go of a burden she had been carrying for too long. Her breathing grew shallow. Each breath came slower than the last. I held her close, singing that old Sinatra song one more time, my voice breaking on every other word. And then just as the first light of dawn crept through the bedroom window, she was gone. I stayed there with her for 2 hours, holding her body, not wanting to let go. I talked to her, even though I knew she could not hear me anymore. I told her how much I loved her, how grateful I was for the life we had built together, how sorry I was that I could not save her. Finally, I made myself get up and call the funeral home. Then I called Kristen. She answered on the 5th ring, her voice groggy with sleep. It was 8:30 in the morning. I had expected her to be awake. "And what is it?" "Your mother is gone, Kristen. She passed away this morning." There was a pause on the other end of the line. Then, "Oh, okay. I will be there in a few hours." That was it. No tears. No questions about how it happened, whether Margaret had been in pain, whether I was okay. Just, "Oh, okay." I told myself she was in shock. Grief affects people differently. Maybe she needed time to process the news before she could react. Kristen arrived at the house 3 hours later. By then, the funeral home had already taken Margaret's body. I was sitting alone in the living room, staring at the empty hospital bed, when I heard her car pull into the driveway. She walked through the front door without knocking. Derek was right behind her. Kristen's eyes were dry, her face composed. She looked around the living room, taking in the medical equipment, the pill bottles on the side table, the flowers I had placed by Margaret's photograph on the mantel. "Dad," she said, giving me a brief hug that felt more like an obligation than a gesture of comfort. "How are you holding up?" Before I could answer, she pulled back and asked the question that shattered whatever illusions I had left about my daughter. "Did Mom leave a will?" I stared at her. My wife's body was barely cold, and the first thing Kristen wanted to know about was the inheritance. "She left everything to me," I said slowly, trying to process what was happening. "We discussed it years ago. The house, the savings, everything stays with me. She trusted me to take care of things." Kristen's expression flickered, something dark passing behind her eyes. Derek shifted his weight from one foot to the other, his jaw tightening. "I see," Kristen said. Her voice was flat, neutral, impossible to read. "We buried Margaret 3 days later at St. Michael's Cemetery, not far from the church where we had been married. It was a simple service, the way Margaret had wanted. About 50 people came, neighbors and friends and co-workers who had known her over the years. Everyone had kind words about what a wonderful woman she had been, how she had touched so many lives, how she would be deeply missed. Kristen stood beside me throughout the service, but she did not speak. She did not cry. She shook hands with people who offered their condolences, accepted their hugs with stiff arms, said the appropriate things in a mechanical voice. Derek stood slightly behind her, scrolling through his phone when he thought no one was watching. After the burial, after the last of the mourners had gone home, Kristen asked to speak with me privately. We walked to a quiet spot beneath an old maple tree, away from the few people still lingering by their cars. "Dad, I have been thinking," she began. Her tone was businesslike, as if she was about to propose a business deal rather than discuss her mother's death. "This house is too big for you now. It does not make sense for you to live there alone. You should sell it and downsize to something smaller. An apartment maybe, or one of those retirement communities." I felt a cold weight settle in my stomach. "Kristen, your mother and I built that house together. I am not selling it." "But think about it practically," she pressed. "You could sell it for a good price, split the proceeds, and everyone would benefit. Mom would have wanted me to have my share. She always said she wanted to help me and Derek get ahead." "Your mother never said anything like that," I replied, my voice hardening. "She wanted me to keep the house. She loved that house, and I am not selling it." Kristen's face twisted into an expression I had never seen before. Anger, resentment, something ugly that did not belong on my daughter's features. "You are so selfish," she spat. "You always have been. It has always been about you, what you want, what you think is best. What about what I need? What about my life?" I stood there, stunned into silence. My daughter had just buried her mother, and she was calling me selfish because I would not hand over the home I had built with my own 2 hands. "Kristen," I said slowly, "I do not know what is happening with you, but this is not the time or place. We just buried your mother." She laughed a harsh, bitter sound. Of course. Typical dad. Avoid the conversation, sweep everything under the rug, pretend everything is fine. She turned and walked away, her heels clicking against the cemetery path. Derek followed without a word, but he shot me a look over his shoulder. A look that said this was not over. I stood alone under that maple tree for a long time, watching the leaves drift down around me. I kept thinking about Margaret's last words. Take care of our girl. I had promised her I would. But what do you do when your girl does not want to be taken care of? What do you do when the child you raised has become a stranger wearing a familiar face? 3 days after the funeral, Kristen called me with news that caught me off guard. She said that she and Derek were going through some financial difficulties and needed a place to stay temporarily. Their apartment lease was ending and they could not afford to renew it. She asked if they could move in with me for a few months until they got back on their feet. Despite everything that had happened at the cemetery, she was still my daughter, and I had made a promise to Margaret. So I said yes. They arrived the following weekend with a rental truck full of furniture and boxes. Far more belongings than I expected for a temporary stay. I helped Derek carry the heavier items inside while Kristen directed traffic, pointing to where she wanted everything placed. Within hours, my living room had been transformed. Derek's oversized leather recliner now sat where Margaret's reading chair had been. Kristen's modern art prints replaced the family photographs on the walls. Boxes of their possessions filled every corner. I hope you do not mind if we make a few changes, Kristen said, surveying the room with a critical eye. This place could really use some updating. It feels so dated. I bit my tongue. The decor Margaret had chosen was not dated, it was classic. Warm, full of memories. But I told myself this was temporary. A few months and then things would go back to normal. That first week, I moved my things down to the small room on the ground floor, the one I had used as a home office for years. It made sense, I reasoned. Kristen and Derek needed the larger bedroom upstairs. I was an old man who did not need much space. Looking back, I should have seen the warning signs immediately. The way Derek sprawled across the couch like he owned the place. The way Kristen went through Margaret's belongings in the closet, sorting them into piles to donate or throw away. The way they both looked at me like I was a guest in my own home, rather than the man who had built it. By the second week, Derek had taken over completely. He painted the living room walls a stark white, covering the warm beige that Margaret had loved. He threw out old furniture that he deemed worthless, including the rocking chair I had made for Margaret when she was pregnant with Kristen. He claimed it was broken and beyond repair. It was not. When I protested, Kristen waved away my concerns. We need to move on, Dad. You are living in the past. All this old stuff is just weighing you down. I watched helplessly as pieces of my life with Margaret disappeared. Her collection of ceramic birds that she had gathered over 20 years. The quilt her grandmother had made as a wedding gift. The wind chimes that used to hang on the back porch and sing whenever the breeze blew. Gone. All of it. Derek did not work. He spent his days lounging in his recliner playing video games at a volume so loud I could hear the explosions from my room downstairs. Occasionally, he would disappear for hours without explanation. When he came back, he always seemed tense, agitated, checking his phone constantly. Kristen went to her job in the city every day, leaving early in the morning and returning late in the evening. She and I rarely spoke. When we did, the conversations were brief and superficial. How was work? Fine. Did you eat? Yes. Good night. Good night. I tried to be a good host, even though it was my own home. I bought groceries, cooked meals, kept the house clean. Derek ate the food I prepared without ever saying thank you. He left his dirty dishes in the sink, his clothes scattered across the floor, his empty beer bottles lined up on the coffee table. One evening, about 10 days after they had moved in, I accidentally overheard a conversation that made everything click into place. I was in my room reading one of the old paperback novels Margaret used to love. The door was slightly open, and I could hear Kristen and Derek talking in the kitchen. "How much longer do we have to put up with this?" Derek's voice was frustrated, impatient. "Just be patient," Kristen replied. "He will come around eventually. He will see that selling the house is the only logical option. And if he does not—" There was a pause. Then Kristen said, "Then we make him see reason. This house is worth at least $400,000. If we can convince him to sell, we each get our share, and we can pay off your debts." Your debts, not our debts. The way she said it suggested this was Derek's problem, one she had somehow become entangled in. "The old man is stubborn," Derek muttered. "We might need to push harder." "I know how to handle my father," Kristen said. "Trust me." I sat in my room, heart-pounding, hands shaking. My own daughter was plotting to take my home, the home I had built with Margaret, the home where we had raised Kristen, where we had created a lifetime of memories. I wanted to confront them right then and there, to march into that kitchen and demand an explanation. But something stopped me. I needed to think. I needed to understand exactly what I was dealing with before I made my move. So I stayed quiet. And things got worse. Derek's disrespect became more blatant with each passing day. He stopped acknowledging my presence, entirely walking past me like I was invisible. When he did speak to me, it was in a condescending tone, like he was addressing a senile old man who could not comprehend basic concepts. One afternoon, I was making coffee in the kitchen when Derek came in. I accidentally knocked my mug with my elbow, spilling coffee across the counter. "Can you not do anything right, old man?" Derek snapped, watching me mop up the spill. "Jesus, maybe it is time you went to a nursing home." I looked at him, this man who was living in my house, eating my food, sleeping under my roof. I waited for Kristen to say something to defend her father. She was sitting at the kitchen table, scrolling through her phone. She did not even look up. I finished cleaning the spill in silence, then went back to my room. I sat on the edge of my bed, hands clasped together, and I thought about Margaret. I thought about the promise I had made her. Take care of our girl. But how do you take care of someone who does not want to be your daughter anymore? How do you protect someone who sees you as nothing more than an obstacle to their inheritance? I did not have answers. Not yet. But I knew something had to change. 2 weeks after they moved in, I drove out to the cemetery to visit Margaret's grave. I sat there on the grass, telling her about what was happening, asking for guidance that I knew would not come. I spent hours there, watching the sun move across the sky, not wanting to go back to a house that no longer felt like home. When I finally pulled into the driveway that evening, something was different. The porch light was off, even though I always left it on. I walked up to the front door and tried to turn the handle. Locked. I reached into my pocket for my keys. They were there, but when I tried to insert my key into the lock, it would not fit. The locks had been changed. I knocked on the door. Waited. Knocked again, louder this time. The door opened a crack. Kristen's face appeared in the gap, illuminated by the light from inside. "Kristen, what is going on? The lock does not work." "We changed them," she said flatly. "We need some space, Dad. You can sleep in the doghouse tonight. Or leave. I do not care anymore." And before I could respond, before I could even process what she had said, she closed the door in my face. I heard the deadbolt slide into place. I pulled out my phone and called her. The call went straight to voicemail. I tried again. Same thing. She had turned off her phone. I stood there on the porch of my own house, the house I had built with my own hands 30 years ago, and I watched the rain begin to fall. It was cold, the kind of October rain that soaks through your clothes and settles into your bones. In the corner of the backyard, barely visible in the darkness, I could see the old doghouse I had built for Kristen's golden retriever when she was 10 years old. The dog had been gone for 15 years now, but I had never torn down the little structure. Margaret used to joke that I was too sentimental. Sleep in the doghouse. My daughter actually expected me to sleep in a doghouse while she and her deadbeat husband occupied the home I had worked my entire life to build. I stood in the rain for a long time, tears mixing with the water running down my face. I thought about Margaret. I thought about the little girl who used to run into my arms when I came home from work. I thought about all the sacrifices I had made, all the hours I had worked, all the love I had given. And somewhere in the midst of that pain, something shifted inside me. Something that had been broken for too long finally started to mend. I was not going to sleep in any doghouse. I was not going to accept being treated like garbage by my own daughter and her worthless husband. I was done being the victim. I got in my truck and drove through the rain to the home of my old friend Howard. We had worked together as electricians for over 20 years before he retired, and he was one of the few people I trusted completely in this world. Howard lived alone in a modest house on the other side of town. His wife had passed away years ago, and his kids had moved to different states. He understood loneliness. He understood loss. I showed up on his doorstep at close to 10 at night, soaking wet, looking like something the cat had dragged in. Howard took one look at me and opened the door wide without asking a single question. He handed me a towel, pointed me toward the couch, and disappeared into the kitchen. A few minutes later, he came back with 2 cups of coffee black, just the way I liked it. We sat in silence for a while. Howard was never the type to pry. He waited until I was ready to talk. When I finally told him what had happened, the whole story from Margaret's diagnosis to Kristen locking me out, he just shook his head slowly. "I'm sorry, Lance. I truly am. No man should have to go through something like that. I made a promise to Margaret," I said, my voice rough. "I promised to take care of our girl, but I do not know how to do that when she has become someone I do not even recognize." Howard was quiet for a moment. Then he said something that changed everything. "Lance, taking care of someone does not mean letting them destroy you. Sometimes the best thing you can do for a person is to stop enabling their worst behavior. Maybe the most loving thing you can do for Kristen is to show her that actions have consequences." I lay awake on Howard's couch that night, staring at the ceiling, turning his words over in my mind. I thought about all the times I had stayed silent when I should have spoken up. All the times I had accepted disrespect because I did not want to cause conflict. All the times I had put everyone else's needs before my own. Margaret had always been the strong one in our relationship. She would never have tolerated being treated the way Kristen and Derek had treated me. She would have put her foot down from day one. But Margaret was gone, and I had to find my own strength now. The next morning, I called Arthur Morrison, an old family friend, who happened to be a lawyer. Arthur had helped Margaret and me draft our wills years ago, and he knew our family situation well. "Lance, good to hear from you," Arthur said when he answered. "I was sorry to hear about Margaret. She was a wonderful woman." "Thank you, Arthur. I need your help with something. It is about Kristen." I explained the situation. The locks being changed, the verbal abuse, the demands that I sell the house. Arthur listened carefully, asking questions when he needed clarification. "First things first," Arthur said when I finished. "That house is in your name, correct?" "Yes. Margaret and I owned it jointly, and it transferred to me completely when she passed." "Then Kristen and Derek have no legal right to be there. They are guests in your home, and you can ask them to leave at any time. If they refuse, we can start formal eviction proceedings." "What about the locks? Can they just change my locks like that?" "Absolutely not. What they did is illegal. You have every right to regain access to your own property. If you want, I can have the sheriff's department accompany you tomorrow to ensure there are no problems." A weight lifted from my shoulders. For the first time since this nightmare began, I felt like I was not completely powerless. But there was more Arthur wanted to tell me. "Lance, while we were talking, I did a little digging. I hope you do not mind, but I ran a background check on Derek." "What did you find?" Arthur paused. "Your son-in-law has significant debts. Gambling debts specifically. Online poker sports, betting the works. He owes over $80,000 to various creditors. Some of those creditors are not the kind of people you want to owe money to." The pieces fell into place. The financial difficulties. The desperation to sell the house. Derek's nervous behavior, constantly checking his phone. "There is something else," Arthur continued. "I reached out to the hospice nurse who helped care for Margaret in her final months. She told me that Kristen visited several times when you were not home, and during those visits, she apparently pressured Margaret to change her will to leave the house to Kristen directly instead of to you." My blood ran cold. "What did Margaret say?" "She refused. The nurse said Margaret was very clear that she wanted you to keep everything. She did not want Kristen to have control of the assets while you were still alive. I think Margaret saw something in Kristen that worried her." I closed my eyes, grief and rage warring inside me. My daughter had tried to manipulate her dying mother. While I was out running errands or taking a break from caregiving, Kristen had been whispering in Margaret's ear, trying to steal what was not hers. "What do you want to do, Lance?" Arthur asked gently. I opened my eyes. The grief was still there, but the rage had settled into something colder, harder, a determination. "I want my house back," I said. "And I want them out." The next morning, I arrived at my house with Arthur and 2 deputies from the county sheriff's department. It was a clear, cold morning, the kind of autumn day Margaret would have loved. Derek answered the door. His face went pale when he saw the uniforms. "What is this?" he demanded, his voice cracking slightly. "Mr. Simmons, I am Deputy Reynolds," one of the officers said calmly. "We are here to ensure that Mr. Lance Williams regains access to his property. This house belongs to him, and you do not have the right to change the locks or deny him entry." Derek stood frozen in the doorway. Behind him, I heard Kristen's voice. "Derek, what is going on?" She pushed past him and stopped short when she saw me standing there with the officers and Arthur. "Dad, what is this? You called the police on your own daughter." I met her eyes. This woman who used to be my little girl. This stranger who told me to sleep in a doghouse. "You locked me out of my own house, Kristen. You changed my locks. You turned off your phone. You left me standing in the rain. What choice did you give me?" Arthur stepped forward. "Miss Williams, I am Arthur Morrison representing your father. This property belongs to Lance Williams. You and your husband are here as guests. Your father is now formally requesting that you vacate the premises within 48 hours. Kristen's mouth opened and closed. "You cannot do this. This is my mother's house too. I have rights. Your mother's interest in the property passed to your father upon her death," Arthur explained. You have no legal claim to this house. None whatsoever. Derek made a move toward me, his face twisted with anger. Listen here, old man. You cannot just throw us out on the street. We have nowhere to go. One of the deputies shifted, putting himself between Derek and me. Sir, I would advise you to step back and remain calm. Derek's fists clenched at his sides, but he did not advance further. The officers escorted me inside to survey the damage and ensure my belongings were intact. As I walked through my home, my heart broke all over again. Margaret's photographs, the ones I had not already rescued, were gone from the walls. Her ceramic bird collection, which Derek had supposedly thrown away, was nowhere to be seen. The house looked like a stranger's residence, but it was still my house. Still the home I had built with Margaret, and I was taking it back. I turned to Kristen, who had followed me into the living room. She was crying now, tears streaming down her face. "Daddy, please," she said, using a word she had not called me in years. "I am sorry. I did not mean any of it. Derek pressured me. He has these debts, and he said the only way out was to get money from you. I did not want to hurt you." I looked at my daughter. Part of me wanted to believe her. Part of me wanted to wrap her in my arms and tell her everything would be okay the way I used to when she was small and had a bad dream. But I could not. Not this time. Arthur told me something, Kristen. He told me you tried to get your mother to change her will while she was dying. While I was out of the house, you went to her bedside and tried to manipulate her. Kristen's face crumpled. She did not deny it. "You cannot blame that on Derek," I said. "That was you, my own daughter trying to steal from her dying mother." "I was scared, Dad," Kristen whispered. "Derek's debts, the pressure, I was not thinking clearly." "Fear does not excuse cruelty," I replied. "Desperation does not justify betrayal." I stepped closer to her, and for a moment I saw the little girl she used to be, the one who used to run into my arms, the one I had sacrificed everything for. "I loved you more than anything in this world, Kristen. I would have given you the shirt off my back if you had asked. But you did not ask. You schemed. You lied. You treated me like I was less than human. You told me to sleep in a doghouse." I paused, letting the words sink in. "I will always love you. You are my daughter, and nothing can change that. But love does not mean letting you destroy me. It does not mean accepting abuse because we share blood." Kristen sobbed. "What do you want me to do?" "I want you to leave. Take Derek and go. Figure out your own problems the way adults are supposed to do. Maybe someday, when you have found yourself again, when you have remembered what it means to be a decent person, we can try to rebuild something. But right now, I need you gone." 48 hours later, Kristen and Derek packed their belongings and left. They loaded everything into a rental truck the same way they had arrived, except now the mood was somber instead of triumphant. Kristen paused at the door before leaving. She looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. "I will never forgive you for this," she said. I nodded slowly. "I hope someday you will understand. But I cannot wait for that day anymore." Derek did not say anything. He just climbed into the truck and started the engine. I watched them drive away, the rental truck growing smaller until it disappeared around the corner. I stood on the porch of my home, the home I had built, the home I had fought to keep, and I breathed in the cool autumn air. I was alone, truly alone now. Margaret was gone. Kristen was gone. But for the first time in months, I did not feel like a victim. I felt like a man who had finally stood up for himself. I walked back inside, closing the door behind me. The house was quiet, empty in a way it had never been before. I moved through the rooms, picking up the few photographs of Margaret that remained, placing them back where they belonged. On the mantel, I found her favorite picture of us taken on our 20th anniversary. We were standing in front of the oak tree in the backyard, arms around each other, smiling at the camera. I held the frame for a long time, running my thumb across the glass. "I am sorry I could not save her, Margaret," I said out loud. "But I saved myself. I hope that counts for something." The house did not answer, but somewhere deep inside I felt a warmth that had been absent for too long. Maybe it was Margaret's spirit. Maybe it was just my imagination. But in that moment, I did not feel quite so alone. The months that followed were difficult. I will not pretend otherwise. Living alone in a house built for a family surrounded by memories of happier times was a challenge I was not prepared for. For the first few weeks, I barely left my room. I ate when I remembered to eat, slept when exhaustion finally overtook me, and spent the rest of my time sitting in silence, trying to make sense of everything that had happened. Howard saved me from that darkness. He showed up at my door one Saturday morning with fishing poles and a 6-pack of beer. "Get dressed," he said. "We are going to the lake." "Howard, I am not really in the mood for company." "I know. That is exactly why we are going. Sitting alone in this house is going to kill you faster than any cancer. Margaret would not want that, and neither do I." I wanted to argue, but I knew he was right. So I got dressed and we went fishing. We did not catch a single thing that day. We just sat in Howard's little boat drinking beer, watching the water ripple in the breeze. And for the first time since Margaret died, I felt something other than pain. It was not happiness, not exactly, but it was peace. A momentary break from the storm. After that, Howard made it a point to check on me regularly. Sometimes we went fishing. Sometimes we just sat on my porch and talked about the old days. He became my lifeline, the connection to humanity that kept me from drowning in grief. I started seeing a therapist too, a woman named Dr. Patterson who specialized in grief counseling. At first I felt foolish, a man my age talking about his feelings to a stranger. But Dr. Patterson was patient and kind, and she helped me understand that grief was not something to be ashamed of. It was something to be processed, worked through, honored. Slowly, I began to rebuild my life. I started small, cleaning up the house, putting Margaret's things back where they belonged, making the space feel like home again. I planted flowers along the walkway, the same marigolds and petunias Margaret and I had planted when we first moved in. I repaired the back fence, fixed the leaky faucet in the bathroom, replaced the broken step on the porch. Small projects that gave me purpose, that connected me to the man I used to be. 3 months after Kristen left, I drove to the county animal shelter. I had been thinking about getting a dog for a while. The house was too quiet, too empty. A companion might help. I walked through the rows of kennels, looking at all the animals waiting for homes. Some barked excitedly, others cowered in the corners of their cages. And then I saw him. A scruffy mutt of indeterminate breed, brown and white, with one ear that stood up straight and one that flopped over. He was older, maybe 7 or 8 years, with a gray muzzle and calm, knowing eyes. The tag on his cage said he had been at the shelter for 3 months and was scheduled to be put down the following week if no one adopted him. I knelt in front of his cage. He looked at me, tilted his head, and wagged his tail once. Just once. Like he was giving me a chance to prove myself. "I will take this one," I told the volunteer. I named him Buster. He was the perfect companion, quiet and undemanding, happy to sit by my feet while I read or follow me around the yard while I worked. He slept at the foot of my bed every night, a warm presence in the darkness. I started volunteering at the local community center, teaching basic electrical skills to young people who were struggling to find their way. Kids from difficult backgrounds, kids who reminded me of myself at that age. I could not change what had happened with Kristen, but maybe I could help someone else avoid the same mistakes. Life developed a new rhythm. It was not the life I had planned, not the life I had built with Margaret, but it was a life. And gradually, I started to believe that it could be a good one. 6 months after Kristen drove away, I received a letter. No return address, but I recognized the handwriting immediately. It was my daughter's. I sat at the kitchen table for a long time before opening it. Buster lay at my feet watching me with those calm eyes, as if he understood the significance of the moment. Finally, I tore open the envelope and began to read. Dad, I do not know if you will read this. You have every reason to throw it away. But I needed to write to you even if you never respond. Derek and I are getting divorced. After we left your house, his debts caught up with him. Creditors were calling, constantly threatening legal action. One night he packed a bag and disappeared. I have not heard from him since. I am living in a small apartment now, working 2 jobs to make ends meet. It is hard, but I am surviving. And I have had a lot of time to think. What I did to you was unforgivable. I know that. I let Derek manipulate me, but that is not an excuse. I made my own choices. I chose greed over family. I chose selfishness over love. I told my own father to sleep in a doghouse. Every night I lie awake thinking about that moment, the look on your face when I closed the door, the rain falling behind you. I hate myself for what I did. I hate who I became. Mom deserved better. You deserved better. I am so sorry, Dad, for everything. I am not asking for forgiveness. I do not think I have earned that. I just wanted you to know that I understand now. I understand what I lost, and I will spend the rest of my life regretting it. If you ever want to see me again, I would like that. But I understand if you do not. I love you, Dad. I always did, even when I forgot how to show it. Your daughter, Kristen. I read the letter 3 times. Then I set it on the table and walked outside. The oak tree in the backyard was bare now, its branches stark against the winter sky. I stood beneath it, the cold air biting my cheeks, and I thought about Margaret. I thought about Kristen as a child running through these same leaves, laughing while I chased her. I thought about the years we had lost and could never get back. A week later, I wrote back. Kristen, I read your letter. It took me a long time to decide how to respond. What you did hurt me more than I can express. When you told me to sleep in the doghouse, when you locked me out of my own home, something broke inside me. I did not know if it could ever be repaired. But I am an old man now, and I have learned a few things about life. Holding on to anger is like drinking poison and expecting the other person to die. It does not hurt you, it hurts me. I am not ready to forgive you completely. Trust does not rebuild overnight. But I am willing to try. If you want to see me, I will be here. We can start slow. Coffee, maybe. A conversation. See where it goes. I cannot promise it will be easy, but I can promise I will try. Your mother always believed in you, Kristen, even at the end. Maybe it is time I started believing too. Dad, I mailed the letter and waited. 2 weeks later, Kristen showed up at my door. She looked thinner than I remembered, tired with dark circles under her eyes. But there was something different about her too. A softness that had been missing before. A vulnerability. Hi, Dad, she said quietly. Hi, Kristen. We stood there for a moment, neither of us sure what to do next. Then Buster trotted up to the door tail, wagging and sniffed at Kristen's hand. She knelt down to pet him. and when she looked up at me, there were tears in her eyes. "Nice dog," she said. "His name is Buster. I rescued him a few months ago." Kristen smiled through her tears. "Lucky dog." I stepped aside to let her in. We had a long way to go, and I knew the road would be rocky. But for the first time in months, I felt something I had almost forgotten how to feel. Hope. That night, after Kristen had gone back to her apartment with a promise to visit again soon, I sat on the porch with Buster at my feet. The stars were out, bright points of light against the black sky. I looked up at them and thought about Margaret. "I think she is finding her way back," I said to no one. "It is going to take time, but maybe maybe we will be okay." I glanced at the corner of the yard where the old doghouse used to stand. I had torn it down the week before. The wood was rotted anyway, falling apart. There was no reason to keep it. Some things belong in the past. Some things need to be dismantled so you can build something new. I pulled my jacket tighter against the cold and sat there a while longer, remembering everything I had lost and everything I had gained. Then I went inside, Buster at my heels, and closed the door against the night. Life goes on. That is what Margaret would have said. Life goes on, and so must we. And so I have. Before you go, I want to ask you something. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself against someone you loved? Have you ever had to choose between your dignity and keeping the peace? Let me know in the comments below. I would love to hear your story. If this story touched you, if it made you think about your own relationships and boundaries, please hit that like button. It helps more people find these stories and connect with others who understand what it means to survive betrayal and come out stronger on the other side. And if you have not already, consider subscribing to this channel. There are more stories like this one, stories about real people facing real challenges and finding their way through. Share this with someone who might need to hear it today. Sometimes knowing you are not alone is the first step toward healing. Thank you for being here with me. Thank you for listening. I hope wherever you are, you have the strength to protect your peace and the courage to love yourself, even when others do not. Take care of yourselves. And remember, some houses are built with wood and nails, but a home is built with love and respect. If either one is missing, it is just an empty building. I learned that the hard way.